welcome to Two Words Wolves Pod. I'm Ryan Eichten. With me is Andrew Carlson from Canis Hoopus. Andrew, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Ryan. Thanks for having me on. Been seeing it floating around in the timeline a little bit, but to be on here in the flesh is it's a big deal. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Yep. I'm on vacation right now. Forgot my podcast mic, so I apologize if the audio is a little bit wonky. But I also appreciate you. You're taking the 3 games and 4 nights at Target Center, covering the team. I guess just tell my audience a little bit about yourself. We both kind of write at Canis Hoopus, but yeah, tell the audience about yourself.
Yeah. So this is my 4th year now, I believe, kind of writing about the team. I'm local. I'm in the Twin Cities, but started out like I've been a fan of the team for a really, really long time. That has I've detached a little bit over the last 10 years. And I kind of started just trolling people on Reddit a little bit. Like that was kind of my thing with the NBA and like on Timberwolves threads a little bit. And then I realized it's like, I should probably be a little bit more productive with this. And Kyle Teige gave me an opportunity a few years back. And so first season was that 2021-22 year, that super fun team that kind of surprised everybody, won 46 games and won the play-in and ended up giving Memphis a pretty good series. So no, I've been really lucky. Covered some pretty fun teams, pretty fun games, and reflecting you as well. I mean, you and I have kind of been in it here together the last few years, and it's been a fun stretch. So, yep, that's, as we know though. There are no dull moments with this team. No shortage of boringness. That is for sure.
Yeah, certainly the last, even as frustrating as this season has been, or as two years has been, I'll take this type of year over, say, 10 years ago when the team was out of it by seemingly mid-November or whatever.
There's always stuff to talk about, right? I mean, hey, even last year when it was on Easy Street, you had Glenn Taylor decide that he didn't want to sell the team. So there's always something fun. This year you think, oh, it could be pretty uneventful, and there's nonstop trade fodder around or at least one of the players that they had recently traded for. So it's always fun stuff, isn't it?
Yep, absolutely. We can just kind of hop right into the more fun stuff. Last night, they beat the Houston Rockets 127-114 in either one of or the best or most fun games of the year. The Rockets tried to get in the head of Anthony Edwards and crew, and they shut them up pretty well. Really fun game. And then obviously the night before that, they kind of handled the Chicago Bulls. A little bit of a frustrating game, at least from my end. I thought like they went up, 21 in the first quarter, and then kind of gave it back, and then put it away early in the fourth quarter. But you were there both nights. Kind of just tell us a little bit about what you saw, if there's anything from the locker room that stood out from you, really just your general thoughts on the last 2 wins.
Yeah, nothing too much in the locker room that had stood out after the game. I'm with you though. I think that Bulls game was a little bit frustrating just because that was a team that at least in my mind, I mean, there's been a lot of talk about the Wizards loss and how maybe bad of a game that was. I mean, the Wolves were down essentially 4 rotation players in that game, but the Bulls one was I mean, they just made a trade. There were about 4 players that were on the bench that weren't playing. They're already a bad team, and they didn't even fill out a full 13-man bench. And I mean, if you jump out to a 21-point lead like that early in the first quarter, Target Center was pretty dead. I think everybody knew what was going to happen there. And as soon as you know it, Luka Garza checks into the game, doesn't play too great.
Those are rough. Those are rough minutes.
It was really, really bad. It was, and I don't want to bag on him too much because I do think he does bring some things when he does check into games. And he's Luka Garza, man. He's a fan favorite. But at the end of the day, that 21-point lead was erased, and the Bulls ended up pulling ahead by 5 at one point. That was a little bit not alarming, but I think that there's a synonym adjacent to that I would probably put there. just let too many people get loose on a bad team.
Hmm.
Ball contain wasn't great. Interior wasn't great. Um, I just think that there was a little bit of meat left on the bone, and I think too with Anthony Edwards, as good as he's played over these last 2 games, it's been a couple of the best games of his career. There's a lot of possessions that he lets the other team off the hook
Yeah.
when he's on the fast break. So those are nits to pick. But I think overall, what you did see over the last 2 games was a target center crowd that came in and was a little bit uneasy to start. It wasn't a great environment, to be honest, in the first couple quarters of the game, but especially with that rock, especially as soon as Dylan Brooks and Anthony Edwards got into it in game 2, there was a ton of energy in the building. And then in Chicago too, when they pulled ahead by 5, and Ant pulled out some second half heroics, that was a game that was gotten into as well. So overall, I think if you look at it from a 10,000 foot view, really encouraging stuff. They're going to need Anthony Edwards here in this capacity for the foreseeable future. The fact that he was able to deliver as many points as he did, 90 plus points on a back to back, that's all you can ask for.
Yeah. Yeah, he's been incredible. The Bulls game for me, it was like, if that game happened in a different context, it'd just be like, yeah, tough quarter. They won by a bunch. Who cares? But it was like immediately following losing to the Wizards and the Kings without Fox/Levine. Like it was frustrating in that sense. But like ultimately, you end up winning by 19. Whatever, you let it go. And especially when the next night they they beat up on the Rockets, and I just thought that was as fun of game. Maybe the Denver game a couple weeks ago was fun, which was as fun or as encouraging. But I've been so impressed with Anthony Edwards, at least on the offensive end. I don't know if we need to pick nits on the defensive stuff or the rebounding. I don't. I mean, some of it needs to get better from him, but ultimately, I'd rather focus on the back-to-back 40-point nights. And obviously, you do it against Chicago, one of the bottom defensive teams. I mean, however you score 49, it's impressive, and he probably should have had 50 if he makes one of those free throws or layups down the stretch. But I thought the Houston Rockets performance was so impressive because, I mean, he had like the step back hero shots that went in, and that's great. But I was like, there was a point when he hit one or two of those that I was just worried, like, okay, no more. Like, we don't keep getting good shots. Don't keep taking the. We've seen him have nights. There's that one Golden State where he just like hero
Yep.
balled them out of the game, and I was worried like, okay, we don't want to see that, and he didn't. He got off the ball when he needed to. When he did get off the ball, it often found him again, and I don't think he took. I'm not sure after hitting like those back-to-back dagger step back threes. I don't think he took a 3-point shot the rest of the game. It was all downhill or mid-range shots, and like that has been the most impressive thing. If you remember earlier in the season, they played Memphis, and I think it was Jalen Wells, the Memphis rookie, was just face guarding him the entire game, and it totally took Ant out of the game. There's a bunch of possessions, you can screenshot it, where the Wolves are in offense and Ant is still standing at the half court line. And the Rockets guarded him and Dylan Brooks guarded him pretty similar to that way. And instead of like letting it take Ant out of the game, he did the exact opposite and took advantage of like a defensive scheme that doesn't really work in other than like a possession or two. So they're like you said, they're going to need him not necessarily 40 points every night, but they're going to need him to play like, and I've been saying this all year, they're going to need him to play like an all NBA first team type player. And up until, I don't know the exact date it changed, up until like January 1st, maybe, he hadn't been playing like that. In the past month or two, he absolutely has been playing as well as anyone in the league.
Yeah, I can't argue that at all. Not even a little bit. I think he's been pretty flawless in the half court over the last couple games here for sure. Here's where I get a little bit of pause, and I'm gonna sound a little nitpicky here, but I do think it's going to lead to some issues down the road if it doesn't get addressed. And I think especially in the Bulls game, that's a team that's 30th in the league in points in the paint. They allow 56 points in the paint per game. There's not a single person on the Chicago roster that wants to defend the paint. That includes Nikola Vucevic. There were way too many times in that game, and he would have found himself at 50 points, no question.
Mm-hmm.
There were too many times, especially in the first half, that Ant let the Bulls off the hook on the fast break, where if it was a 2-on-2 or if they had an odd number, um, it would be there were too many step backs, there were too many list backs, um, and shots that went up on the fast break. And the problem with that, in my mind, is it led to runouts almost every single time, and that's how you let teams like
Yeah.
the Bulls back in the game. I wrote this in my recap last night against Houston. Wolves had 2 fast break points against Houston and 5 against the Bulls. That's something that you just that's a it's helped because the second chance points have come so easy for them. But that's something that I don't see that's a positive trend. And it's something where Ant can be a one man fast break. He's almost one of the most forceful players in the entire league. But when you let teams off the hook and you take those pull up 3-pointers at the volume that you do, I get he's one of the best shooters in the league, no question. He's also one of the best people at just putting pressure on the rim in the league as well. When you're able to get a team like Chicago running backwards like they were, I thought there was just too much of that, especially in the first half, and it was one of the things that kind of let the Bulls back into the game. And so I don't want to come across too critical on that end, but I do think it's something that it does have to be addressed a little bit maybe in the future when you do face teams that do like to get out and play fast, like Sacramento on Monday. Teams that like to play quick, that's just becomes a little bit more of a problem.
Yeah, Finch said after that Sacramento game something to the effect of like, we committed the cardinal sin of letting them play offense for offense in that type of game instead of like trying to defend and play well. And I think like the pace of that game is similar there too, where they let Sacramento play exactly how they wanted to play. And that first half of the Chicago was again the same way, where they just kind of played right into Chicago's hands. But and I agree with you, like that's something that they need to. It's just low hanging fruit, like pushing the ball more often. They were doing it a little bit better when Randall was healthy, like the Phoenix Sacramento back to back. I thought they did, and especially did a really good job of just like running and getting. He was just getting easy layups by pushing the ball, and that's kind of disappeared since Randall got hurt. But like it's going to the rim. I think the last 6 quarters of basketball, the second half of that Chicago game,
Yep.
that's where most of those Ant points came from, or
Yep.
either at the line or getting the point, getting the paint. And then the Rockets game, Ant was just getting downhill all game, and that likely opened up the 3-point daggers at the end of the game. I mean, he had 15 free throws. I'm sure if I was an opposing fan, I wouldn't necessarily like an opposing player getting 15 free throws, but I have, and Ant has certainly felt this way. I've kind of felt like Ant's been getting not the greatest whistle, and it probably shouldn't even bring it up, but like just like the normal course of the season bad whistle. Like he was at like sub 4 free throws a game, and that partially was his shot distribution. So like I think that's certainly swung the other way. He's probably getting some nice calls here recently, and it'll middle out eventually. But to see him get to the line, get into the paint, I mean, his 2-point percentage this season has been so low. He's missed, even in those games, so many layups. The whole team probably could have some better shot making in the paint. But Ant is just, and like I asked Finch after one of the games, and he's just like, yeah, he's got to make layups. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I can't disagree with you there. But yeah, I just think Ant's been so impressive. The trade off with kind of getting to the line instead of getting all your points at 3 is he is questionable for this Portland game with the hip injury. So you wonder if kind of taking some blows there. I know earlier in the season he's kind of saying like he was appreciating not having to go into the paint, making a bunch of threes. Was saving his body. But it's probably a good sign that he's kind of realized, okay, without the guys in the lineup, I need to take over to a certain extent. I need to play better. And what's been impressive is that hasn't come just all on him. He's gotten off the ball and made the right pass of recent, which I felt like there was a good portion of the season where he wasn't doing that.
Yeah, I think what you said there was pretty key in that, in the second half of that Bulls game and then in the Rockets as well, as soon as he started attacking the paint, those are kind of the times where the game turned. And I think especially too, an important thing is with Julius Randle now out, the most important thing that they have to replace with him on the bench is the gravity that he brings into the paint. Naz Reid is I don't know if he's quite there as a secondary playmaker. He's really good at finishing plays. I'm not sure he's super great at initiating plays and getting other people involved as much. He had 6 assists against the Bulls, but I don't know if that's as much of a trend. I don't know if that can be as much of a trend. That's going to be a really important part, and it's going to cost a little bit. I know that there's going to be time where, and Finch mentioned it after the Chicago game, where Ant maybe shied away from contact a little bit in the first half in order to save himself for the second. But it's the reality of the situation is that they just need that right now. I mean, they need him to draw contact and they need him to get to the basket. He was hurting in the locker room after the Houston game.
Sure.
It wasn't necessarily as much. His hip didn't really see him limping around as much. I don't necessarily think he would be a concern for tomorrow night against Portland. But it was just like he was just talking to the training staff and just kind of mentioning, like, he's like, I'm getting beat up out there, in a couple more expletives than that, as you may know. But no, it is. It's the reality of where the team is at, and they need him to do that. They need him to do that. They need him to do that pretty badly, and they need people around him. But because what it does is, and I know we'll probably talk about him a little bit later, but guys like Jaylen Clark, I mean, they've talked in the locker room so much about, I've never shot these open of shots in my life, in my basketball career, because Ant's drawing 2-3 guys on his way to the basket. There's an and one last night with about 3.5 minutes left, where if you paused it, he's fading backwards from about 6 feet out, and Amen Thompson and Dylan Brooks are draped all over him, the two best defenders on the Rockets. I mean, it's almost unheard of. And so when you're that paint gravity, like, reality of the situation is Rudy Gobert is not going to be the one to replace that from Julius Randle. He might be able to chip in here and there, be able to distribute, spray the ball out to the perimeter a little bit, but it's got to be 95% of that, if the Wolves are going to be successful, has to come from Anthony Edwards, and he will get banged up in the process. There may be a couple games he misses, but at the end of the day, too, the All-Star break is pretty close, so it's an encouraging thing as well.
Yeah, without being around the team myself, I would expect Ant to play. I would guess it's more one of those things where, yes, there's a non-zero chance he doesn't play, and so you got to put him on the injury report, because if you say he's healthy and then have to pull him, that's not a good look. But you never know. I'm just kind of the Vegas line indicates that Ant's going to play. Not that that's always a good parameter, but yeah, a couple Ant stats that just kind of pulled. He's the youngest player to make 1,000 3-pointers, more than Steph Curry. Now, kind of the caveat there is Steph's 26 to 30 whatever ages are the greatest 3-point shooting seasons ever. So you're gonna if you look at whatever bar graph, Steph's gonna start catching them in terms of these age. But if Ant plays enough seasons, the 3-point record is probably in play for him. He has the most 40-point games in Wolves history. I saw those clips from the locker room where, against the Bulls games, I didn't catch who it was, mentioned that he's tied with Cat, and then brought it up again the next night that he's now past Cat in 40-point games. And then to go back to the 3-pointers quick, he's made 4.2 a game at 42.1%. The only other player in NBA history that on a full season has made 4 3-pointers a game at 42% or more is Steph Curry. So if he can keep this up the last, we got a third of a season ish left. If Ant keeps this up, he's going to basically be on the greatest non-Steph shooting season in NBA history. And it kind of goes hand in hand with what we're saying about going to the paint. It's not that like he should stop shooting 3-pointers, because like that's almost been the most efficient part of his game. But like now that, like early in the year, if you remember, like teams are just going under on every single screen, and he was just walking into just wide open 3-pointers all the time. And then when like Ant's season kind of took a hit was when they started just putting 2 on the ball off of every single screen, and that held him out there. That held him down for a while, and now we're kind of seeing him make the adjustment to that. But like he's having such an incredible 3-point season, and he's just so good at also getting downhill to the rim that I just think he's going to the ceiling is through the roof, or that's a bad way of saying it, but like everything is there for him. There isn't much he can't do on the offensive end. I mean, just think he's Steph Curry and like driving to the rim like himself. It's just been insane, and it's been really fun to watch.
Yeah, it truly is. I'll ask you this one because I thought about this for a while, and I wrote this in kind of the last section of it was a recap maybe a couple weeks ago when he passed Cat up for 3-pointers. Is Anthony Edwards passing Karl Anthony Towns, like some of these volume scoring records at 23s or early on in his career for Cat's career? Is that more so a testament to the volume and level that Ant plays at, or is it more of an indictment of the volume that was left on the bone from Karl Anthony Towns?
Probably the second one, just because Cat played like almost at this point twice as many years as Ant. If they were if they were similar, like it'd be fine. But like yeah, it's just and it kind of continued with the Knicks. They never got him to be this volume 3-point shooter that I think like his skill set says he could be. But ultimately, like Cat is just not the type of player to shoot 10 3-pointers a game. I think
Right.
like 8 is kind of where you would have liked to see him, but like it's just much easier for a guard to get to 3-point attempts than it is for Cat. And ultimately, I do think part of like Cat's solid percentage is because he did take whatever attempt theoretically would have gone in at 35% for him, which is you'd want him taking that attempt because that's like 2 points that's like or that's greater than a point per shot. Whatever theoretical shot he would always pass out of that.
Yeah. Yep.
Which helped kind of balloon his 3-point percentage a little bit. But ultimately, it's kind of more on Cat, but as Ant stacks up well. And honestly, the fact that a 23-year-old can lead in any statistical category kind of says more about the organization and the history of the Wolves than any one player.
Yeah.
Like the top 5 3-pointers, I think Nas is gonna like the top 5 in 3-pointers is all going to be like I should just look it up, but it's like
Wally Zerbiak is in the top 10. I mean, let's put that out there.
Right, but like the top 5 is going to be in some order: Ant, Cat, D'Lo, Nas, and Wiggins. Like
D'Angelo Russell was here for 2.5 seasons, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. And Malik Beasley's like probably in the top 10 for playing like 2 seasons.
Well,
so.
most in a season was Malik Beasley for a little bit there. I mean,
I would imagine Ant's going to chase that one down.
Yeah, that one's gonna be pretty quick work. But I mean, yeah, let's not lose sight that Malik Beasley held the Timberwolves record for more than a year. I mean, that is that's something that
he was good that year.
No,
man.
he was really good. He was really good.
I mean, they traded him for Rudy for better or worse.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly.
Speaking of guys knocking down 3-point shots, Jaylen Clark has just been a revelation. His post-game comments has been really funny. The one good quote he had, like he said something to I should just let you say, but it's like, I thought I was a sit down, clap, and go home guy.
Yep.
Which is just a fantastic way to phrase being a DNP. But yeah, I mean, he got his chance. They've kind of gone away from Minot here, unfortunately. And he's just run with it, and he had the best game of his career. 17 points. I mean, the biggest thing we know he can defend. He's already shown that, but like the 3-point shot or just any sort of offensive game is going to be the pathway to minutes for him. And the offense has been fine. I mean, the shot's probably going to come and go. He's not going to hit 4 of 6 threes every night, but I've kind of liked his, even when the shot isn't there, I've liked his kind of putting the ball on the floor and getting off it and not taking like just weird shots. All the shots that he's taken have been, in my eyes, have made sense. So yeah, what have you seen from Jaylen Clark and maybe a little bit from the locker room from him this week?
He's a smart basketball player, man. Like even I mean, you look at his. I mean, you can tell that in his post game comments he's a little bit nervous, like his body language. Like he's definitely a little bit nervous, but he's so well thought out. Like even when he is a little bit nervous, he's got a lot of people around his locker talking to him, wanting him to answer their questions. Like He is. He's very thoughtful. Like he says he doesn't want to say the wrong thing. Like you could tell he's media trained well, but he still gives really good, thoughtful answers. And I think part of that too just kind of reflects on like his like it's a weird connection to make, but like I just think that reflects on his game. Like he just, even if he comes into the game, he's a little bit nervous. He had no idea he was getting into the game against Phoenix. Um, he just comes in and he does, like, he just makes the right plays. He just kind of eases into the game. Um, he's going to be someone that Chris Finch really, 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 really likes because
Yeah, he's a Finch type.
oh my
Yeah.
gosh, it's like a Nikhil 2.0, but he's just built like a truck. And it starts in the defensive end. And that's what Finch kind of alluded to. Like, that's why Jaylen Clark, I think, is probably going to end up, even when Julius Randle and DiVincenzo come back, I think that's going to end up being the ninth man on most occasions, unless they just come out really flat offensively. Then I think it might be more of a Rob Dillingham game. But
people aren't going to like that, by the way, if Rob goes back to DNPs.
not even a little bit. But at the end of the day, too, like, you can't argue with it. I think Jaylen Clark has outplayed, like, it's not even close. Jaylen Clark has outplayed Rob Dillingham here since he's made his way into the rotation. When he gets on the floor, he's guarding the best player across from him, and it certainly helps that he scored 17 points and he was hyper efficient from the field. I think he was 5 of 9. But at the end of the day, my thing yesterday, and I was talking to Jace Frederick next to me, I was like, it was probably halftime. I was like, the Wolves are not going to win this game because Naz Reid wasn't playing well at the time either, or like right up to halftime. I was like, the Wolves aren't going to win this game with flat performances from Naz and Nikhil. Like, one of them has to show up here, or they're not going to be able to hold on. And I jinxed it. And I said, I don't think this is going to be sustainable from Jaylen Clark because he was 2 for 3 at the time, and maybe looked a little bit wobbly, but sure enough, like he kept it going. Like, I would say that, and the weirdest thing was that he was like a -12, which I could not wrap my head around. It was like
probably a good example of plus minus, single game plus minus, or even any plus minus is isn't always the best stat. He's finished -8.
Yeah,
Thanks.
The most deceiving -8 that maybe I've ever seen in my life, and I'm not even exaggerating with that one. Like, I thought he was one of the bigger impact players when he was on the floor. He's very Nikhil-esque. That's kind of where I have him pegged right now. And he's making his way into the rotation and producing in very similar ways that Nikhil did when he found his way into the rotation after he came over from Utah, which I don't think is a coincidence at all. And Jaylen's one of the people in the locker room who talked about how, like, the gravity of Ant certainly helps his game. Like, that's no coincidence at all. So I think yes, he's come on, and it's not, I'm not going to be too hyperbolic with it, but if the Wolves have to make some tough decisions this summer, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker is one of them, obviously politics aside with the Julius Randle Naz Reid thing and who starts, who doesn't, who gets paid what.
Sure.
I think if all of that is equal, I would personally lean towards letting Nickeil walk at this point and kind of having Jaylen Clark slot into that area of the rotation, just because Nikhil's going to probably get somewhere around the mid-level exception. I would imagine he gets probably 14-ish million a year if he kind of keeps producing the way he has been. And like, what's the incremental, like, what's the incremental gain there? Like, what's the incremental gain between Nikhil at 15 million and Jaylen Clark on the lower scale contract that he's at, you know? So, he's been a pleasant surprise. And I think that he's going to be somebody who Chris Finch looks to get involved in a variety of situations. He might close games towards the end of the year if he keeps playing like this.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. The Wolves do have an empty roster spot. It'll be interesting to see because Jaylen Clark is still technically a two-way guy. It'll be interesting to see if they try to get him on, like, bump him up to a full-time salary this year and extend him a year or two on a nice number where it's like, oh man, that's that's not, you're not paying him very much. But ultimately, if you hand a guy that wasn't expecting to do anything, what, like $4 million, $5 million, that's a whole bunch of money.
Yep.
Like, I know that's a lot of money to me or you, or even a young NBA player.
I'd take it.
Yeah, I take like 10%. But he had a good quote that he said, like, he played under Mick Cronin at UCLA, and like his thing was like mistake-free basketball,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what I felt like I've seen from Clark. Not a lot of turnovers, maybe some missed layups, missed shots. Those are whatever. But like, not like playing to the game plan, not taking shots that are above your head, moving the ball, playing defense, like just doing that stuff. And like, as you continue to grow, as he continues to come back from this Achilles injury from two years ago in college, then you can try to think about trying to put more offensive load on him. But ultimately, the biggest thing is just knocking down that 3-point shot at the league average rate. Even if he can continue to do that, he's going to be a solid player.
Yeah, if you took a shot for every time Chris Finch said make the right play, you'd black out, and I think that's one of the things that Jaylen Clark is doing. Like, and it's what we allude to a little bit, but that's the type of stuff that's going to get him to see minutes over Rob Dillingham. And I'm not, I'll spend 20 seconds on it, but there's so many instances over the last couple games of Dillingham being in the game and chewing up a lot of the shot clock, not necessarily being good situationally. He's had some unfortunate bounces, shots go in and out, things like that.
He's had a couple that have
really,
the Kings game had one that was just like would have brought the house down and it lipped out.
Yeah, it was that step back on the wing there.
Yeah,
yeah, and he's had a couple of rough goes of it, but there have been some tough, like, end of half, like, situational things with him as a point guard that you look at that and you just say he just needs a little bit more time. Like, he's probably gonna be the starting point guard here of the future. Like, he's a good player, but he's just not entirely there yet. And if he's not giving you a ton of offensive pop, then kind of what is he really going to bring to the rotation on that given evening? Jaylen Clark, he's in the right spot. When he gets the ball, he takes the right shot. When he gets closed out on hard, he drives to the basket. And just by doing those things, like, you find yourself at 15 points in an NBA game when you're out there with other good players that can score the basketball. And then he turns around and he plays good defense on the other end. And he gets out in transition. Like, he just makes the right play, possession after possession after possession. And just by doing that, like, you're going to get yourself time. And so that's, I think, that the thing that sticks out the most to me. You couldn't have said it better. He couldn't have said it better about his time at UCLA. And I think it's also it's a testament to the staff on his development as well, and in coming back from the Achilles. But he's just, like, every time he gets the ball, you just, whatever you say in your head as the armchair quarterback of, like, you got to do this, you got to do that. Like, he makes that play every single time. And so that's what I think impresses me the most about him.
Yeah. I think going back to Rob a little bit, I'm still very high on what he could be. And I've seen enough from him offensively. And like a lot of the mistakes have been defensively, or like you said, kind of processing the game or whatever. And I just think he's still 19. Like, I think if people are counting on Rob to provide the Wolves solid minutes this year, I think he's just not going to quite be good enough for that. But if you're in your head planning on him being the starting point guard, maybe not next year, but the year after and for a while, that is certainly something I think he will grow into. But in the immediate short term, I'm a little dubious of kind of sticking him in the rotation, or not sticking him in like as a starting caliber player. But I do think they need to. I mean, obviously, when Dante's out, like, the minutes are just there. But even when Dante comes back, I really think they should try to continue to get him minutes, even if it means losing a game you should win every once in a while. Just because, like, we can talk about the trade deadline here too. Like, I don't think this is a championship caliber team. While saying that, I don't think there's many teams in the West that I would say are impossible for them to beat. Maybe OKC is obviously the toughest matchup. Anyone else, honestly, and maybe honestly, if the Lakers are healthy and rolling, that might honestly be another team But on it, the Wolves are facing the Lakers in the playoffs just based on the seedings. That means they had I'm not sure they're going to be able to get there without winning a playoff series. So at that point, you're probably fine with it. But yeah, I just think you can cost yourself a win or two and that be fine. Just because I think the bigger focus should be on trying to make the playoffs, get into the top six, probably get Ant and these guys some playoff minutes again. But yeah, what did you think about? They didn't make a move at the deadline, not even like a backup point guard or a backup center. Personally, the not trading Randall point, I was totally in favor of it, especially like looking at what the other kind of similar level players got. I just I for me, I kind of came to the point I didn't want them to just salary dump him,
Agreed.
especially if it was going to cost them the Detroit pick, because ultimately, like, I know the risk is that he accepts the player option and you lose one of or both of Nas and Nikhil. And to me, if he does, one, I don't think it's likely that he's going to accept it. But if he does, I just think that's still a tradable number that you'll be under the second apron, you'll trade him, and maybe it's like a good thing. They can get back a similar salary that then they can use for something else. Like, like him opting in is not the biggest fear of mine. Not to say it goes without risk. Should they have traded for a backup center quality player? That would be probably the one for me. Like a backup point guard, I'd just rather just give Rob those minutes. But like a backup center, especially kind of watching Luka Garza struggle, that probably would have been something I'd look at. But ultimately, I would guess they tried to do that. And like if a team was asking for more than a second round pick, and they honestly like they don't really have any like most of their roster spots are taken up by people that like you'd want on the team.
Mm.
Like they don't have like a Troy Brown of last year, the point guard.
Jordan McLaughlin.
No, sorry, the Shake Milton.
Oh,
That's what I
Shake
was
Milton.
thinking of,
Sure,
or
sure, sure.
J Max, another good example.
Recently
Like they don't
traded
just
Jordan
have like
McLaughlin, by the way.
yeah,
New San Antonio Spur.
they don't really have right a full time contract that's easily traded. I mean, you'd probably have to give up like Terrence Shannon or someone like that, or I mean maybe like Minot, and a second round pick, which I'm fine with it. If they're gonna those backup center minutes without Randall are gonna kind of be a disaster. I like what they did against the Rockets, going small. There's going to be matchups where you're probably going to have to play Garza. Just he's on a like the offense will rebound. Maybe the defense will continue to be bad, but Luka will start hitting shots. But what what do you think about just kind of their not making a trade at the deadline?
Yeah, I don't mind it, honestly. I think it's like the inverse of recency bias with Randall right now among the fan base. Personally, like I still think those off-ball defensive clips, the transition defensive clips that were kind of circulating earlier in the year, that's still kind of very fresh in Wolves fans' minds. Like since the New York game, he's been really good. Like I
Yeah.
haven't had like there's just not a lot of Julius Randle critiques for me since then. And because he's just playing better team basketball, there's not as much moping that's happening. There's not as much like visible frustration. He's distributing. He's come up with some pretty big buckets too. Like the 3-pointer hasn't been falling, and the overall counting stats don't look as good. But that's because the ball is moving more. There's not as many of those bad like rip your eyes out offensive possessions that were you knew as soon as he put his back to the basket that no one else was getting the ball. Like those have kind of largely been
Now,
eliminated.
what I always say with those possessions is those possessions were as much of fault as the four other guys on the court, who often were always just standing still, than it was Randall himself. But obviously, Randall
Yeah,
Randall is at fault there
for
too.
sure. And I think it's a chicken or the egg thing too, where it's like when that happens,
Yeah,
it's one of those things where Ant's just like, yeah, no, he's gonna shoot the ball. I'm not gonna move. I'm just gonna sit here with my hands on my knees. But like it's like when a team is gelling the way that they kind of have been over the last couple weeks, I don't see the reason to offload him for like Robert Williams and like some just kind of like
yeah.
a bill of goods.
And I get the people being frustrated about like them kind of not choosing a path, like not going all in or not trading Randall for parts that would help you next year. But ultimately, I never saw the trade that made sense. Especially when Randall was playing very poorly at the beginning of the year, I think it made total sense
Sure,
to just kind of salary dump him.
sure.
But like you said, he's kind of fit in better recently. I haven't. He's been fine. I would still probably say what I've been like. My opinion all year is like if he leaves in the off season, I don't think that that's bad. I think that that's fine. The bigger team building piece, like they just need to find a second All Star caliber player
Yes.
to pair around Ant. I just don't think that's Randall, and maybe so. I like that's the biggest thing for the next 2, 3, 4 years is finding that player. How they go about doing that. I mean, maybe it's like Dillingham or Jaden or Nas. I think you kind of need someone a little bit higher caliber than that. But the other kind of piece of news is that they kind of kicked the tires on Kevin Durant, who didn't end up getting traded. From what I've read and from what like Krasinski and those guys have reported, is that it never really got close because the Wolves are in the second apron and because Phoenix is in the second apron. They would have had to just salary dump like both Jaden and Julius just to get under the second apron. And then that doesn't even count what they would actually have to give up to get Kevin Durant. I guess they'd have to keep Randall. But like it just you would have gutted your entire
Yeah.
roster. You'd have been left with basically like Ant, one of Nas or Jaden, and Durant, and that's
Yep.
it. So that it just never made sense. But on the flip side, in the offseason, they will be under the second apron because briefly, Randall's number might be off their books. That honestly, if Randall opts in, that makes the Kevin Durant trade easier because you got a big old salary that's easy to trade. And then Nas's number comes off the book, and Nikhil's numbers, his little $4 million salary, comes off the book, which you can still like trade for Durant and then sign those guys with their word rights. So like, but like they'll briefly dip under the second apron, which will make trading for Durant just 10,000 times easier because you can aggregate salaries again. You can pair Julius Randle with, honestly, like Dante DiVincenzo, which
Go figure that one.
like that would probably be the start of that trade, or Jaden would almost certainly be out the door in a theoretical Durant trade. I don't know if that's something that'll make sense, but I do think if Durant is available in the offseason, which is certainly plausible, I think the Wolves would be one of the top teams that would be in line to try to get him.
I would agree with you, and I think going back to your kind of point of going all in for the trade deadline, like that's as all in as you get is if you try and make that move for Kevin Durant. Outside of that, I think like this roster is as all in as you get. Like you have a former All-Star in Julius Randle, you have Dante DiVincenzo for like essentially the mid-level exception, which is ridiculous. Like I still think like he's up there.
Less now that the cap goes up 10% every year.
It's going to be less than the mid-level exception. Like that's like one of the best contracts in the entire league. This current iteration of the roster is about as all in as it gets based on probably what was available out in the market. And so no, I don't have any issue with not making a move, and I don't love like the idea that like let's just kind of shake things up as soon as they start to go well. There's a reason that Julius Randle is one of the top players in the Wolves in terms of net rating, like individual net rating. I don't necessarily love it as a stat, but like it's not nothing. There's something there. Like he makes a difference. He's been playing defense recently. Like you start to see some signs that maybe the Wolves can start using him in kind of that primary big man defender role, and have Rudy start to do a little bit more of the QB spy type of thing down on the blocks. Like there's like there are things there with Randall that are pretty intriguing. I think another like argument could be made again if Nikhil is someone that ends up being a casualty of this offseason. There's a case to be made that maybe you trade him and just maybe see what you can get back in terms of draft capital, maybe a bench guy, just whatever you could maybe get there, just so he doesn't maybe walk for free. But I do think what that tells me is with no move being made, Nikhil's name not really coming up in any trades, rumors, anything like that. What that kind of tells me is that I don't think the Wolves really know what they're going to do this offseason. I think there's still kind of a lot in flux. I don't know if there's really a blueprint that's set there. And so, I mean, I just think like let's roll the dice. Let's just see what happens. It's not something where you have to make a tweak every time something goes bad or every time like someone has a couple bad months. I get the angst behind Randall. It was really bad there for a while. You could feel it in Target Center whenever he touched the ball.
Mhm.
There's that audible groan. Remember the first Rudy year too, when Rudy would get the ball
Mhm.
and it was like a sigh. You could hear it. Um, that's kind of what it was for Randall, but it hasn't been that way recently. And you could see in the first couple games that he was out, like there's an adjustment period without him because he's important. He draws a lot of bodies. He distributes. He gets the ball out to open shooters. Like he's not nothing in this offense. He is an asset.
Yeah.
Um, and again, I'm completely with you. Like, what's the incremental gain by making a move right now? That's not Kevin Durant. I don't see it. I just don't.
Yeah, it wasn't there. You bring up kind of what the plan is for after this offseason, and unfortunately, that's going to heavily hinge on who the ownership is. On Monday, that will be the arbitration panel will decide whether A-Rod and Laurie will be buying the team and buying out Glenn Taylor, or if Glenn Taylor will be awarded the team and it'll remain. The ownership stakes will remain where Glenn is the controlling owner and Mark and A-Rod still own 38%, I believe, is what they currently own. Yeah, I wrote it down. I should actually, yeah, 38%, just shy of 40. And that'll come out on Monday. Personally, it's a big deal. I think it's really, this is just me personally. I think it's really bad if Glenn wins.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to be, you look at what happened in Dallas. I don't think, it's probably unlikely that Dallas, their ownership actively was the reason that Luka was traded out, but I really do believe that these billionaire tycoon gambling casino people, they are not big basketball people, and so when their general manager came up with this crazy, I'll call it stupid trade of trading Luka Doncic, they either didn't understand how bad that was or just flat out didn't care. Um, and that like that, if Cuban was still owning that team, there's just no way that trade happens. And to be honest, there's a good chance Nico Harrison no longer has a job already. And that's the type of ownership you want. You want people to spend. We certainly don't want the new guys to move the team, but you need. And Glenn likes basketball. There's no way he owns a team as long as he doesn't enjoy basketball. But I just think I think we've seen enough, kind of similar to the Twins ownership situation with the Poleads. We've seen enough of the Poleads. We've seen enough of Glenn Taylor to know the organization just has not been well run in general. Maybe that's honestly probably changed the last couple of years. Um, and I just worry if Glenn wins, are we losing Tim Connolly? And then what's the cascading effect from that? I mean, this is 10 steps down the road, but like, I just think your chance of retaining Ant past his current salary goes down if you're with Glenn. I have no idea who's going to win. I honestly, all I know is that both sides believe they're going to win. Not exactly shocking. That's how we got here in the first place. Um, but yeah, I'm personally really hoping that Mark and Alex win, and that's not to say that they don't come with their own potential landmines as well. But I also just I've seen them so much of like what's gone well the past couple of years seems to have their fingerprints on it to a certain extent, and so I believe they will be better for the organization than the other group, and honestly, just getting this past us and knowing who the owners are will hopefully be the biggest thing.
Yeah, I do believe that Mark and Alex will end up winning. I at least I don't know, maybe that might be a little bit of optimism. I think at the end of the day, um, where the Timberwolves are at right now is a series of events where they have stumbled into success. And I think it's very similar. Like it's like the Midwest version of the Lakers currently, where the Lakers are a dysfunctional organization. They have Kurt Rambis who signs off on all basketball decisions. I mean, come on, like what are we? Like what are you doing there? They're a team that just has not handled their assets very well, but because they're the LA Lakers, they have these things kind of fall into their lap, and they end up being successful with it. LeBron James comes, Luka Doncic gets thrown into your lap. I think with the Timberwolves, like a few years ago, you were essentially a dead in the water organization. You kind of had Ryan.
You're saying
What was that?
Pre-Anthony
Pre-Anthony
Edwards.
Edwards. Ryan Saunders was your
Yeah.
sacrificial lamb head coach. You hired a bad president of basketball operations in Gerson Rosas, who I think like we all kind of 2020 hindsight see as somebody who kind of fell into a few successful things and kind of rubbed some people the wrong way. You hire a great, like accidentally hiring a great coach like Chris Finch. Like he was kind of your guy all along. You accidentally draft a guy like Anthony Edwards, kind of stumbles into your lap there. I don't necessarily know if like that's somebody who, honestly, the Wolves front office was super high on when they drafted him. I think they had the number 1 pick and they drafted Anthony Edwards and just kind of said, let's see what we have here. Like there's these series of things that happened that found their way into being a successful team. And then Mark and Alex kind of come along and some of this stuff seems to work out and kind of cement itself a little bit more. And you find yourself at a crossroads right now where Tim Connolly pushed his opt out 1 year back for a reason. I mean, there's no like that might be the most blatant, like, I'm going to wait and see how this ownership thing shakes out I've ever seen in my
Yeah.
life. If it goes the way of Glenn, I think that you have a series of dominoes that slowly kind of lead to an organization losing a lot of the momentum that it had kind of, again, whether it be accidentally or inaccidental, built up over the last few years. And you might see Tim Connolly leave. Who knows what that does with who knows what the impact of that is with Chris Finch. Like you have a new like we can go on and on and on, and I can write on a whiteboard and do the Always Sunny in Philadelphia thing where I have the spools of, or the threads of yarn pinned up on my
Yeah,
wall.
Charlie Day.
Yeah. I mean, I could do that all night and talk about potential hypothetical dominoes that fall if Tim Connolly opts out and leaves. But I think it is a huge ruling. And it's one that if Mark and Alex do end up winning, I believe the confirmation of them becoming owners would happen during the All-Star break among all the owners, so they would take the majority of control then.
Yeah, that's a good point. If they do win this arbitration, they're not technically out of the woods
Correct.
yet. The other 29 NBA owners could vote against them and deny their purchase request. I would have.
There's no way.
Just talking to people, I would be very surprised if that happened because of the precedent it would set. Would just be would be brutal.
There's no way.
If the other 29 owners had an issue with Mark and Alex, they've had many years to bring that up.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like Danny Ainge, like he had the chance to blow up the Luka trade or whatever, theoretically. And it's just like, yeah, okay. But like the bad will that doing that would ingratiate yourself with would just not worth it. And I do think like the other 29 owners are just going to kind of be like, okay, they won it, great.
Yep, they'll get it. And I think the any pause that was around finances or whatnot, I think got kind of got qualmed a little bit when they brought a couple other deep pockets on board for minority ownership stakes.
I just think if they win the arbitration, then I think the money
exactly.
is...
I mean that's all. I mean that's all just kind of hypotheticals at this point. If they did end up winning it, I don't think that there would be really any issues getting things across the finish line, and that would happen. So that would happen over the All-Star break, and I think you kind of see things shake out, and like the momentum kind of continues after the All-Star break. Like I think being around the team day to day, and you can attest to this too, like you don't really feel that in the air, but like you would be stupid not to think that like this clearly is on the minds of people. Like this, it's not nothing.
Yeah.
Like it's
not. I don't think the players. I would argue the players aren't really in tune to it. Like when A-Rod first bought the team, was like, I don't even know who A-Rod is. It's like, Like, you don't know who one of the best baseball players ever is? Okay.
Maybe not the players, but I do think the coaches. Like I don't think that it's
staff
it's a
organization.
dance
Yeah,
that
for
they
sure.
have to do, because I mean there's no question. Like Glenn has his people in the organization that he's hired. Like Alex and Mark have brought in people in the organization too, and it's and like the coaching staff is kind of in they work with both of them. And so it would be crazy not to think that it is at least a part of the thought process of coaching staff of people who are directly impacting the basketball product. And so I just think the ruling is, no matter what, it's going to be a little bit of a monkey off the back. But if it goes, I think, in the direction of Mark and Alex, I think you maybe see some residual momentum kind of continue to take place, and some changes continue to be made. So
Yep, I agree. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Leo and I will be on Tuesday. Maybe if depending on the news, maybe I'll hop on solo and do a quick emergency episode myself. But yeah, the Wolves' next game against the best team in the West, the Portland Trailblazers. Portland has somehow won 10 of their last 11 games and are one of the best teams net rating wise in that stretch. Kind of crazy to say, but the Blazers are playing good basketball right now, so that will not be a cakewalk, at least not the one that you would have expected a while back. But yeah, Andrew, anything you have to plug? Anything before we go?
no, I'm gonna I think during the All-Star break I'm gonna work a little bit on something around Julius Randle. You can check it out on Canis if you're listening. I'm sure you probably already do if you're listening, but I'm gonna work on something around Julius Randle. I think just talking a little bit about what we talked about now, about him, about if he leaves, like you can't just fill it with Naz Reid. I don't believe that filling the Julius Randle role with Naz Reid in the offseason is a thing. I think that there are multiple parts of his game that you need to replace, and he brings a few things to the team that are important, that are rolled into one player. Secondary scoring, secondary playmaking, and so I'm going to be working on that a little bit over the All-Star break, just some content for that, and so just keep an eye out for that and the arbitration decision.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Well, thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time. Go Wolves!